Hey guys, Doug. So, wanted to talk about that. Why I quit making videos and where I've been for the last year or so. So, we're just gonna get into it, and I'm just gonna be completely honest with you guys. I have had an interest in developing a certain company for a number of years, since mid to late 2022. And it's a company, at least not specifically, that has, I'm not aware of anyone that has done something similar to this. It's in kind of the preparedness, kind of the firearm space. You could think of it as a holistic preparedness company. We are starting, or maybe a holistic life defense company. We are starting in the firearms world just because that is where I feel most comfortable to make a meaningful impact. It's where I am most comfortable talking at breadth and depth on the subject. And through our, and by our I mean my wife and I's conversations and exploration and discovery of the subject, I found that a lot of the information, obviously, on the internet, in the industry, what you hear in gun shops, is not very good. And then, in a more worrisome nature, I found that I was part of the problem. Now, I don't think I ever had bad intentions, but I didn't understand things at a level that I felt I should be opening my mouth. So, I stopped opening my mouth. I was making this content, and it was always supposed to be structured, and it never was. I was disorganized mentally, physically, and I wasn't happy with the quality of the content. We started doing the scriptural content, and one day I sat down, opened my Bible. I was at work waiting on a train, because that was what I was doing at the time, and I was looking at my word. I was looking at my scriptures, and I was on video, and I looked at the camera. I'll see if I can find it. I don't know if I still have this video or not, but I looked at the camera and said, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this. And I didn't. I turned my camera off. I got back in my truck and read the scriptures for myself, and I don't regret any of that. If you're, obviously I'm a whole Bible guy, Genesis, Revelation. I enjoy studying in scripture that isn't necessarily canonized. So I'm familiar with the role of the false prophet. And and a prophet isn't necessarily someone like, oh, I see the future and it's got to be like this. That's not biblically what a prophet necessarily is. Prophets certainly can receive visions from the Father. I'm not saying it's not what it is, but it is not necessarily what it is. A prophet is a person, at least in my understanding, that is delivering the message of Yahweh, the Father, the Lord our God, in the King James, for example. A prophet is someone that tries to bring the people back to the Father. Now, they might have visions of where things are going to go if they don't do certain things. They may see how the future will develop and share those visions with us through things like Revelation, the book of Revelation. And I don't want, if I'm going to be bringing you, now obviously we're not necessarily talking about the Father if we're talking about guns. I'm not saying that one is exclusive of the other. I'm saying that we are talking about a nuanced subject. We're not necessarily, I don't have scripture for necessarily, I kind of do. I don't necessarily have scripture for exactly how you should hold a Glock 47 and use it, or a Glock 20. I don't have scripture for whether or not 10mm or 9mm or 44 Magnum or 454 Casull is the best bear cartridge, right? So we're talking about guns, but everything I do is coming from the perspective of someone who studies and applies themselves, or applies the entirety of scripture to themselves, in the good and the bad. And I didn't want to be a false prophet in the regard of sharing truth with this subject. I didn't want to be part of the problem. And I did not feel comfortable that what I was doing was aligned with what I would find as the truth. And I didn't want any more content out there that that was bad information, or that wasn't vetted information, or that came from a source that wasn't trustworthy, and I certainly didn't want to be the untrustworthy source. So I shut up, both scripturally and on the preparedness or gun stuff. So when I continued, obviously researching and studying and trying to understand scripture, I don't regret, or there's nothing I've made scripturally that I necessarily disagree with. If you go back and watch my video, Living for the Last Moment, that video was taken, I believe, right before a very pinnacle event in my life. If you watch the video, The Gift That Delivered Me from Self-Deletion, so to speak, if you watch that video, the events that transpired to that video's existence, we'll say, happened shortly after I made that video. And my walk into belief as I understand it now started after that event. It kind of started right before that event, but my whole walk scripturally started with the question, what would it look like if I actually believed in God? What would my life look like if I actually believed? I'd always been a Christian. I'd always professed belief in how I knew at the time Jesus Christ. I went to church when I was a kid. I believed there was hypocrisy in the church at the time, and I stopped going as an adult. I would venture to different churches and check them out, but I never found one that I thought was sharing the truth. And at the same time, I didn't at that time trust that the scriptures had not been tampered with. And so I had what I would describe as a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That's how I would describe it at the time. I thought it was interesting that the word Lord and the name Jesus Christ, I found it interesting that those never felt right in my mouth. Never once did I say the Lord and felt confident saying it. It always felt wrong. I don't have any way to prove that. I don't have any way, but it's always, every time I said the Lord, you can hear it, I think, when you listen to me in that video, the term the Lord always made me uncomfortable. It never felt in my heart as correct. And obviously with our understanding now whether you say Yahweh or Yahweh or Yehovah or Yahuwah or Yahuwah, I'm not getting in on the pronunciation debate. I think any attempt with our broken understanding to get the Father's name right is admirable. Whether you say Yahusha or Yeshua or Yehoshua or whatever you say, trying to get close to his name, I think, is admirable and shows respect to our Father, to the Creator of everything. If I have a friend named Steve, I'm not going to call him John, out of respect for him and his name that he's developed in his life. I think at the very least that respect is deserved to the Creator who gave you the ability to exist. But that's not the subject of this video. So, of course, I continued in my scriptural studies. I continued in my walk. I continued in my development as a shooter. And in March-ish, no, it was more like January of 2024, I started feeling like I had an idolatry problem with guns. So back in 2019-ish, I sold all my guns, basically almost all my guns, and then took that money and reinvested and had much fewer guns numerically, but they were much more better suited to my preferences and what I was trying to achieve. That was a win. I highly recommend that, by the way. If you have 30 guns, but only maybe one is kind of set up how you want it, and all the others are not how you want them, highly recommend going through the kind of painful process of getting rid of everything you don't need. Get rid of everything you don't need and take that money and put it into what you actually want. You can do that over time. You don't need to pull the trigger like I did and do it all in like a month. But fast forward to early 2024, late 2023, I started feeling like I had this almost idol issue with guns, and I needed to get that in check. And in the pursuit of getting that in check, actually, so this is the rifle I use on a day-to-day basis. This is the rifle that accompanies my family and I to the field. It's the home defense rifle. It's everything for me. But this is not the state of the rifle that I had originally gotten. So at the time, and this would have been early 2024, maybe a bit late 2023, I was realizing I was spending I was specifically looking into LPVOs at the time. Nothing wrong with LPVOs. I'm not saying optics are the devil. Like, this is a personal issue. At the time, I was spending considerably more time researching these equipment selections rather than pursuing truth, whether scripturally or in firearms. And I define truth as things that have a definitive result on your practical capacity in the world, right? So, and maybe that's not how I define it perfectly, but for the sake of right now. So I was spending more time doing this research than I was doing in my scriptures. I was spending more time doing this research than I was training. And I took my time training and my time in my scriptures, not necessarily thinking or praying or meditating or any of those things, but in scriptures physically, and the time I was training. If I took those two things and put them together, I was spending probably three times as much time researching the subject and just completely enveloped in trying to look into this thing. And I was like, this is a problem. I shouldn't be doing this. It's one thing if you're doing that productively for others, like what we're doing, where you're trying to serve someone else. But for self-serving things, making content or getting the right thing, it was just a waste of time, and it was enveloping my attention. And your attention and time are probably some of the most valuable things you have, regardless of how much money you do or don't have. So I was like, screw this, I'm done. I'm gonna boil it back to the basics. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this, and if you're getting into firearms, I don't recommend this. Not the way I'm doing it, but I wanted a basic rifle and a basic pistol set up to do what I needed it to do, and I wanted to focus on getting good instead of focusing on all this fluffy equipment nonsense that I thought I perceived fluffy equipment nonsense compared to actually training and actually developing my capacity as a shooter, as a teacher, as a believer, as a instructor in preparedness or life or scripture, any of these things, right? So this is basically what I started off with. So this rifle, basically exactly this rifle, it originally had these forearms, or this forend. This is a mid-length version of an A2 forend. This is what the rifle came with. In order to mount an optic, I put this MOE forend on there to have the M-LOK slots so that I can get my optic on, my flashlight. Boop. So this is basically exactly how the rifle was when I first set it up. It had a radiant charging handle. It had a Magpul bad lever, which was a brand new development for me. I'll talk about that in a second. It has a Troy Industry diopter non-tritium rear sight that has obviously the large and small aperture, and it has the fixed front sight and a Surefire turbo. This is the 640 model. It did not have a tape switch or a fancy button. It just had the stock factory button. Now I have the Unity gas cap and or the Unity tail switch and the button. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called, but that's what I have right now. It's pretty slick. I like it a lot. But originally, I just had the push button tail cap that came with the Surefire and mounted it on this rifle, as you see. For the sling, I used a Blue Force Gear sling that I had gotten in Afghanistan, and I just threw that on there. It's not necessarily my preferred sling, but again, I wasn't looking for preferences at the time. I was looking for a simple rifle that I wouldn't have to think about ever again if I chose not to. If I chose to abandon firearms as a pursuit completely, I could leave this rifle as is and pick it up in 20 years and be as happy with it then as I was currently. A light, an iron sight, a sling. That's it. Now the bad lever, I've hated bad levers my whole life. The reason was because the first time I ever picked one up, I picked it up, I locked it back, the bolt, and I went to release it, and I pushed with the tip of my index finger, and what happened then is what's going to happen now. My finger slipped off and touched the trigger, and I was like, nope, no thank you, not interested, not my thing. Those are stupid, those cause NDs. I saw a number of people. The person that tipped the scales completely into me getting one was Matt Branca. We'll get to that in a second. And I was shown, I believe Chris Bondi at A Regular Guy had put a video up a while ago that I'd seen that really piqued my curiosity. And then Matt Branca and him talking about it is what set me over the edge of I'm definitely gonna try one. And he said, Chris in his video mentioned indexing your finger straight and swiping down. As you can see, when you do it that way, there's no way for your finger to slip in. Even if you have short hands, if you use that method, the direction of travel for your finger is not in, it's out. So again, I'll bias my hand out so I can barely reach it. I hit the trigger guard, I'm not anywhere near the trigger. So if you swipe it, if you're using it correctly, basically it's a different thing. And I love the Bad Lever. So every single rifle we own, and within my family, has a Bad Lever now for that reason. Because I found, anyway, not the topic of the video. So this was the rifle that I used for that next year, and I used it until almost the end of the year, exactly like this, with a magazine, right? Of course it had a magazine. And then for my pistol, I got a Glock 45 model 45 and 9mm. I put a Trijicon RCR and an X300T on it. The X300T had came out a little bit before this, and the RCR was fairly new. And the dots were a thing that I wanted to maintain on the handgun because the benefits are major, and we'll talk about those in another video. My perceived benefit of a dot is not the dot's ability to help you shoot. It's something entirely else. I'll talk about that in a separate video. And the light, Surefire had finally gotten into the high candela game. It's a Surefire, it's a brand I trust, it's something I know will probably work. Same thing with Trijicon, they got into the enclosed emitter game, and I had problems with my RMR being in Alaska with heavy snow. This solved my problem for dots. This was enough light that I could buy these two things and I'd never have to think about my handgun ever again. I would be perfectly fine if the industry stopped producing weapon-mounted lights. I would buy 2 more X300Ts, and I would never think about pistol lights again. I might get the TLR7, but as far as giving me what I need and what I need it to do, the X300T does everything I need. I'm perfectly happy with this light, and I have no inclination for more or different unless I can get the same performance in a shorter package. So that is a forever item for me. I am forever okay with that amount of light. The dot, I assumed it would be a forever dot for me. It gave me everything I cared to have in a dot. It was enclosed, it was clear, it was easily adjustable, and if this is the only dot I could ever buy ever again, that would be okay by me. Will things develop to be better? Maybe, but the marginal benefit of getting better from this is good enough for me never to worry about it again. So that's why I got this. A handgun I'd be cool with having for the rest of my life, a light I'd be cool with for the rest of my life, and a dot I'd be cool with for the rest of my life. And that is my, I'll call, foundational setup. This is a setup that is, if you're comfortable carrying this size of handgun, this will do anything you need it to do within reason forever. So those are the 2 firearms I kind of started this phase of my journey with. And oh my goodness, right about that time, a friend of mine from Idaho, who again, I'm not sure if he's okay with me mentioning his name in videos since these are not affiliated with his things necessarily, but he introduced me to the practical shooting, the performance shooting side of things. Gentlemen like Ben Stager, Matt Pranka, Joel Parks, Nick Young. There's others, but those are the 4 that have been most valuable to me and my growth. The content they produce, I am in Alaska, so getting access to them right now for in-person training isn't necessarily within my reach at the moment, but they have resources in content and print that you can purchase, and highly recommend that. But I was introduced to them and their philosophies of shooting by my friend in Idaho, and I will be forever grateful for that. And over the last year and a half or so, I've been applying those principles. I've been trying to understand them on a deeper level. And I am now at a place where, though I'm still developing, when I say I feel very confident in my ability as a shooter, I don't mean to say compared to gentlemen like my friend in Idaho, or to Ben Steger, or Joel Parks, or Nick Young, or any of these people. I'm not saying I'm developed as they are. What I'm saying is I feel comfortable enough in my development to talk about these things. And I think, being relatively new to these perspectives, I think I have a unique insight on these things as someone that's developing. I'm not an end-all expert on anything, nor do I profess myself to be. But I have developed enough to have perspective I want to share. And this is going to be more from a perspective and development standpoint than it is from a do this standpoint, if that makes sense. I am starting to develop training that I will be offering. It will be very affordable because of the nature of my development. A guy like Ben Steger has multiple national and world championships for USPSA and IPSC, which is just USPSA internationally, basically. Not exactly, of course, organizationally, but you get what I'm saying. I don't do Shabbat. I don't do things on Shabbat, so that is not a path I am going to be pursuing, though I will be pursuing competition within the respect of things that are not on Shabbat. So I will not, as far as I can ever see happening, I will never have the opportunity to compete at the national level. That's okay. For the people I'm looking to serve and the impact we're looking to have, I am developing myself to be able to help develop others. Now, I'm at a point now with shooting where for normal carrying and being competent enough to be responsible out in the world, I'm perfectly comfortable with where I'm at. But I'm also more dissatisfied than ever because I understand the principles at hand and the things. I now understand the things I'm doing wrong at a much deeper level. So I'm more frustrated as a shooter, but my shooting has never been better, if that makes sense. Like I can see the path, and I want to walk that path, and it's important to me. But I'm frustrated when I do things wrong, and I can feel the little nuanced things I do wrong, and it's very frustrating. But I also have never been this confident as a shooter. So it's an interesting place to be. Joel Parks will talk about perpetual frustration, and I think I know exactly what he means. He says it in a way that comes across very negative. I don't think, and I'll see if I can't send this video to Joel, but I don't know Joel personally. I'd love to know Joel personally. Joel seems like a guy I would vibe with very, very well. I love people that come into specific nerdiness because of a practical need. And Joel seems to be that kind of person where he doesn't necessarily seem at face value a full-blown nerd just organically from books. He has a thing he's trying to do, and he needs to understand this thing at a certain level in order to achieve those things he wants to do. So, and that has led him to understand things. And that's why he does all the stuff he does for Ben, because he's like that. And I identify with that completely. That is my preferred flavor of autism. So anyway, but he talks about Joel talks about perpetual frustration. And I think I understand that. And I think I can put that into words, at least from my perspective, that I've never been more confident as a shooter. I've never been more happy with what I can do with a handgun, but I'm also way more frustrated, and I'm way more interested in correcting the issues I see and perceive because I understand them now. And so there have been times where I've literally I've put my handgun down in dry fire and been like, am I just gonna sell everything and get an LCR, like a revolver? Like, I am done. Like, I am so like I am supposed to be good at this, and I suck because my hand tension or something is off that day, and I just can't get that darn dot to stay where I wanted to stay while being as aggressive as I need to be on the trigger. And it's just infuriating because you know what to do and you just can't. And you'll have days like that, of course, but there are that I would define as counterproductive frustration, but frustration with the small nuance of wrong that you're doing. So you're seeing good effect on target, but maybe you threw a Charlie or a Delta and you know what you did, or worse, you just mentally left the exercise for a second, and there's a delta, and you don't know what happened because you just stopped paying attention, and that is frustrating. Don't do that. I've done that a couple times, where you're shooting and you just lose focus, not visual focus, like mental focus for just a second, and something goes stupid, and you're like, that was dumb. Anyway, but yeah, so after this last year and a half or so, I've spent so much time developing these things that I feel that I can talk on these subjects in a way that I can put out content that is, what is the word I'm looking for? Congruent. I can hopefully put out information that I'm comfortable with. Now, I understand that I will develop further as a shooter. I will develop further as a believer. I will learn things that change my perspective on what right looks like. And that's okay. But I don't feel anything I'm saying is necessarily objectively wrong. And that is the issue. And nothing I'm saying is coming purely from opinion. And the things that are coming from predominantly opinion or proximal understanding, I am actively seeking to fix. For example, this is a 10 millimeter cartridge. For a long time, I've carried 9 millimeter in bear country. Obviously, if I'm worried about bears, I bring a long gun, but that's not always possible, practical, legal, whatever. So I've always carried a 9 because I've never been in heavy bear country and without having planned, and thought, man, I wish I had a 10. I've always wished, man, I wish I had a long gun. But this is an opinion, not necessarily something I've developed or been exposed to from any point of validity, of actual experience or actual testing. So I'm going to test these things, and that's led to, if you want to watch the personal channel, it's just my name, Douglas Milburn. I've talked about some of the things I've observed since I picked up this 10. I have not shot this 10 yet. I've shot 10 before, of course, but I haven't shot this one. But in my dry fire with this handgun so far, kind of just becoming familiar with it, I've noticed some things that are really interesting. So this all boils down to basically, why did I stop making videos? I stopped making videos because I was not comfortable that I was developed enough or experienced enough to put out content that wasn't part of the problem I was trying to solve. Both from a gun preparedness and scriptural perspective. I wasn't developed enough as a man in scripture. I wasn't developed enough as a shooter. I wasn't developed enough as an armorer. I wasn't, and I wanted to fix those things. And I didn't really want to open my mouth. I had ideas, and I felt guilty for not making content. I still feel guilty for not making content. And I talked to people in town that would see me and ask about content, and it hurt me that I wasn't putting information out there. But I didn't want to put information out there if I wasn't confident in it. I don't want to do things anymore that are not aligned with who I am or what I believe. I'm not interested in doing that. I'd rather die than say or do something that is not aligned with who I am and how I believe. And I just simply won't do it. So if that means that we are less successful on the business fronts, or that we are not able to pursue life at the same extent as someone that is willing to compromise those values, then that's just the way the game plays. But I'm now at a point where I can start talking about these things and start developing these things and start testing these things in a way where I feel congruent with who I am and what I believe. So we're back. We will now. On that note, I might cut this part out. I want to talk about the channels that we have. So we're going to go from least to most polished, if that makes sense. So we have my personal channel, which is the one I've always consumed content on. That is Douglas Milburn. And on this channel, I will be talking. This is just going to be kind of my personal soapbox, if you will. I'll talk about gun stuff, scripture stuff, business stuff, mostly from a development standpoint. That's what I'm using this channel for. It's kind of all the stuff that I want to post that isn't necessarily aligned with the exact mission of Nomadic Rifleman, the channel, or the company that we're developing will be posted on that, and it will also serve to document the building of the company. Then we have this channel, Nomadic Rifleman. So I don't know why I'm writing this, but you get it. Now this channel is for the gun people. So we're talking about gun content, preparedness content, outdoors content, and it's going to be less polished, more nuanced, more deep dive. So the gun stuff where most of this is going to be for the company, but I know a lot of people that are nerds like I am, or that are gun people, kind of appreciate the nuance. They kind of appreciate some of the back end. So again, Douglas Milburn, that's the least polished content. Nomadic Rifleman will be slightly more polished. And then we have what I'm going to call simply right now the company channel. That will be under the company name, as you may assume. But for now, we're just going to say the company channel. That will be content that is created for normal people. It's going to be more highly polished, and more short form. Not short form as in YouTube Shorts, but short form as in it's going to be condensed to what you need to know. And so here's what you need to know, and here's the practical thing to do with that information. Nomadic Rifleman will have that stuff in it too, but predominantly it's going to be more nuanced, more like deep take. So let's say you take a ballistic test video on the company's channel. It might be a 5-minute video where we're just saying, hey, here's what we're testing, here's the result, here's what you need to do here's what maybe you should do as a result of it if you are on this perspective or this perspective. With Nomadic Rifleman, it may be a 20-minute video talking about more nuance behind what we're seeing, discussing the results a little deeper, a little bit more nuanced, so that the people that are already in the gun stuff, that already understand terminology and such, can take. If you understand guns, you will get more value out of the 20-minute video where we discuss nuance. If you know what MOA means, if I can, you're like, oh, it's 1.041 inches at 100 yards. It's a 1/60th of a minute. It's 1/60th of a minute, 1/60th of a degree. It's an angular unit of measure. If you already know all that stuff, then the Nomadic Rifleman stuff will have the content in there for you, where you can make a more nuanced take from the testing we do. The company stuff is going to be oriented towards normal people that don't necessarily know all the terminology. It's not that they're stupid; they're just not exposed to it or surrounded by it like we are. So it's going to be more to the point. This is what we're testing. This is why. Here's the results. Here's what you may take away from the results, or what you should be taking away from the results, if you're this person or that person. In Nomadic Rifleman, we're going to be able to go a little bit deeper, talk a little bit more advanced. And then the Douglas Milburn stuff, let's say the same video is maybe it's 40 minutes. Less polished, not necessarily, it's going to be all the nuance, and it's going to be the testing and the setup. And there's conversation and things I think are interesting, but not necessarily pertinent to the video. So if you're not a gun person, the company channel, that's for you. The goal of that is so that you can take as little time as possible on any given subject to have maximum result in your life. So do this, apply this, very simple, hey, you do this stuff. The Nomadic Rifleman, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more deep dive if you're already into the gun thing, where you're not necessarily your average Joe, you kind of get what's going on, or you're trying to get what's going on and you want the nuance, then this is where you go. And if you want to see Doug's perspective or development or whatever else, then Douglas Milburn, right? So that's how this kind of works. And this is kind of the format we have found that is going to be effective for serving our purposes, because the company stuff is not necessarily being made for the gun community. It's being made for people that have wanted to get into firearms but are a little overwhelmed, or look at it as a big subject and they're not really sure how to navigate the waters. That's who the company channel is for. Nomadic Rifleman is for the people that are, this is their thing and they want to know more about it. This will be kind of you and me together going through these things. We have, with what we're doing in the company, we're going to be finding testing that people may find very interesting, and I want to share it with you guys. And then my personal development and how we develop the company and all that fun jazz will be on the Douglas Milburn channel. So, yeah. So that's where I've been. That is why we haven't been making content. Life has been pretty crazy, but that's not an excuse. That's just circumstance. We've had a second son, Corazia. Had him in December of last year. We had our son Samuel is doing. I'll have to edit that out. Our first son is doing very well. He is almost 5 years old now. I'm healthier than I have ever been, which is wonderful. Praise the Father for that. And we got a new house. We're a little bit more established. Content for the last year would have been the easiest to make it that it's ever been, but I wanted to be sure that we were bringing good content to the table. Obviously, this video isn't reflective of that, but this is what we are doing. So, and this is where we've been. This is what we've been trying to do in the back of things, is developing ourselves, developing our ability to produce content and the truth, to understand the truth. The proverb, seek the truth and do not sell it. Trying to figure out how do we sell truth in a way that is biblically sound. So the way we're going to do that is everything we find, all the information we have, we're going to give it away for free. It's going to be available here and on the company channel. There will be no secrets. There may be proprietary techniques that we develop that we're going to keep to our core customers, but if we're not going to expect you to pay for a class necessarily to get that information. The only reason we'd ever keep something secret is if it's a direct correlation to our personal security. I'm not going to show you how to put my safe code into the safe, for example. That is not information you need to be privy to. But that is obviously, if any of the Alaskan IOI guys are watching this, I obviously will not be showing anyone how to put my safe combination numbers into my safe. That is not a thing we're going to do. But if they're not a responsible party, they won't have that information. But just so you know, ATF, please don't kill my dog. Love you. But as far as like truth in regards to training, the only thing we would ever not post on the internet for free is things that are directly related to our personal security or our personal techniques that we may develop. We'll talk about, basic battle drill stuff, but U.S. Army doctrine doesn't apply to preparedness 1-to-1, because you don't have the biggest weapon in the U.S. military is logistics, and you don't have the logistics to support their TTPs. Just don't. Like the Matt Pranka thing, that guy, I love Matt. People think he's rude and he's anti-2A because he tells you the truth. The truth is CQB will get you killed. If it doesn't get you killed, it will get someone that you dearly love killed. If you think you're going to go take structures with your sons, I would advise against that technique, using CQB principles to take structures with your sons, because the likelihood of you holding your dying son in your arms is quite high, and the likelihood of someone maneuvering on you while you're trying to comfort your dying son and killing you too, also pretty high. Doug, that's super mean, super scary, and super emotionally troubling to consider. It is absolutely emotionally troubling to consider, which is why CQB is not for you. It is for professionals that are supported logistically, that can develop themselves in training. If nearly every SWAT team in America sucks at CQB, newsflash, they have the logistical power to develop themselves a little bit more than you do. So focus on developing the things that will actually impact the fight. Your ability to shoot a gun, right? Your ability to be hard. How do you get hard, Doug? You do hard stuff, right? Like sometimes that's built into life for you. If you, deal with intestinal issues for 5 years and you do it for 2 years while working a fairly hard job, you get to do hard things innately just by existing. And if you're living a pretty comfortable life, you're gonna have to expose yourself to some suck, homie. That's the way you do it. So get hard, get good at shooting. If you do those two things, everything else will work out well enough. You don't need to take time from your family to develop something that you'll die doing anyway. That's just stupid. And Matt tells you in Matt's way. Thank you, Matt Pranka, for being awesome. But people aren't receptive to the truth when it's counterproductive to their self-image or their egos. That was an issue for me. I'm sure it is an issue to me in some ways. But the truth isn't your friend in feeling. The truth is your friend in walk. It's your truth. The truth is your friend in development, not in coddling how you feel or how you want to perceive yourself. That's as applicable to me as it is to you. So, but yeah, that's where we've been. That's what we're doing. That's the deal, I suppose. For anyone that's watched this video, thank you. Genuinely, thank you. Anyone that's been waiting for content, thank you. To the people, and you know who you are, to the people that have asked me about content, that have remembered my family, that have remembered me, thank you. I am so honored to have gained any amount of trust or attention or time that I've gained. If you guys are interested in seeing what we're doing in our initial products and offerings with the company, you can email me if you're curious about it, nomadicrifleman@gmail.com. You can email me if you're curious about it. I'll talk to you about what our initial offerings are going to be. Some of them are not, if you're watching this content, some of them are not for you. They're experimental in nature, they're exposure based in nature. And you know, if you know what a Glock, a PDP, and a Walther, if you know what a Glock, a Walther, a Smith & Wesson feel like, recoil like, some of our products are just not for you. But if you want to know what we're doing, email me. If you have friends that have been wanting to get into guns and have been intimidated or overwhelmed, our products are for them, for sure. And if you want to do those things along with them, let us know. We'll give you a discount. You won't have to pay this, because you're not getting the same value as they are, so you will have a different rate. I think since we're providing the information for free, I feel perfectly comfortable charging for, basically we're charging for implementation, not for the information itself. The truth is available for free, and if you want to develop yourself on your own, you're perfectly welcome to do that. Once we're more developed and you see what we're offering, you can just mirror our stuff. You can go and get it yourself. You might be able to get it a little bit cheaper. If the services we're providing aren't high value to you because you already know how to do them yourself, then that's wonderful, and we're happy for you for that. And I want you to do that. I want you to develop yourself if you're that person, so that you can be powerful for the people around you. But if you have friends that want help in these things, in implementation specifically, then that's who we're here for. So if you know someone like that, send them our way. And for right now, until we get the company more developed, the Nomadic Rifleman email works fine. Just to get in touch with me and Brianna, and we'll talk to you about what we're doing and what we're trying to do with the company. And then if that's for you, then we'll get you hooked up with the company, aside from Nomadic Rifleman, which is its own thing. So yeah, that's the skinny. Kind of fat too. It's a long video, but hopefully you guys found it interesting. And I know some people have been waiting, so I felt a need to give you guys an explanation for what's been going on for the last year or so. So yeah, that's why we quit making videos, and that's why we're back. So thanks for having us back, I suppose. Shalom.